Marcus Chen floated through the docking tube of his newly purchased orbital station, breathing recycled air through his helmet as emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the corroded walls. The Galactic Commerce Registry had listed Station Omega-7 as structurally sound but requiring minor maintenance. What they hadn't mentioned was that the place looked like it had been abandoned for decades. His boots magnetized to the deck plating with metallic clicks as he activated the artificial gravity in the main corridor. The station groaned and hummed to life around him, systems awakening after what felt like an eternity of sleep. Marcus had spent his entire life savings and taken out 3 different loans to buy this place, but it was finally his. A chance to start an independent mining operation in the asteroid belt. Well, at least the life support works, he muttered, pulling off his helmet and breathing the stale but breathable atmosphere. The air tasted metallic, but the sensors on his suit showed acceptable oxygen levels. Marcus pulled out his tablet and began checking off items from his inspection list. The main corridor stretched ahead of him, lined with sealed bulkhead doors leading to various sections of the station. Most of the lighting panels were dark, but the few that worked revealed scratches and dents in the walls that suggested some kind of struggle had taken place here long ago. As he moved deeper into the station, Marcus noticed something odd. The layout didn't match the schematics he'd received from the seller. According to his blueprints, there should have been a hydroponics bay behind the 3rd bulkhead door on the left. But when he activated the controls, the door revealed only a sealed maintenance shaft. "That's strange," he said to himself, consulting his tablet again. The seller, a Centauri trader named Vex Hal, had been unusually eager to close the deal. Marcus had assumed it was because the station was in the middle of nowhere, far from any major shipping lanes or resource deposits that the big corporations cared about. The 4th door opened to reveal what was supposed to be crew quarters, but instead, Marcus found himself looking at a massive blast shield. The thing was easily 3 meters thick and made of some kind of composite material he didn't recognize. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, and a single access panel blinked with a steady red light. Marcus approached the panel cautiously. The symbols weren't in any human language he knew, but they weren't Centauri either. They looked almost ancient. When he touched the access panel, it suddenly lit up with blue light, and text appeared in perfect English. "Biometric scan required. Please place hand on scanner." "Well, that's convenient," Marcus said, though something about the situation made his skin crawl. Why would a civilian mining station have blast doors with biometric scanners? And why would they be programmed in English when the previous owner was Centauri? Despite his reservations, curiosity won out. Marcus placed his hand on the scanner and immediately felt a slight tingling sensation as it analyzed his DNA, retinal patterns, and neural activity. The scanning process took nearly 30 seconds, far longer than any standard security system required. "Scan complete. Welcome, human-designated Marcus Chen. You have been classified as Station Administrator. Access granted to Level 3 facilities. Warning, Level 4 and 5 facilities require additional authorization." The blast door began to retract with a deep rumbling sound that seemed to shake the entire station. Marcus stepped back, his heart racing. How did the system know his name? He hadn't entered it anywhere, and the station's computers shouldn't have had access to any human databases. Beyond the blast door lay a corridor that definitely wasn't on his blueprints. The walls here were different, smoother, made of some kind of advanced composite that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Emergency lighting strips provided a dim blue glow that reminded Marcus uncomfortably of alien technology he'd seen in documentary footage from First Contact missions. As he walked down the corridor, Marcus noticed that the air felt different here. Cleaner somehow, despite being recycled through the same life support systems as the rest of the station. The walls were lined with additional doors, each marked with those same strange symbols and numbered access panels. The corridor ended at another blast door, this one even more massive than the first. The access panel here pulsed with an amber light, and when Marcus approached, text appeared immediately. Level 4 facility detected. Current authorization level insufficient. Do you wish to request emergency access? Marcus hesitated. Every instinct he'd developed during his years working dangerous mining operations told him to turn around and leave. But this was his station now, legally purchased and paid for. He had a right to know what was behind these doors. Yes, he said aloud. Emergency protocols initiated. Scanning for threat assessment. The scanner beam that swept over him was different this time. More intense, more thorough. Marcus felt it probing not just his body, but somehow deeper, as if it were reading his thoughts and intentions. Threat level, minimal. Human designation. Marcus Chen shows no hostile intent. Emergency access granted for 24-hour period. Warning. Full access to Level 4 facilities requires authorization from Terran Defense Authority. Terran Defense Authority? Marcus whispered. But that doesn't exist. The blast door retracted, revealing a vast chamber that made Marcus's jaw drop. The space was enormous, easily the size of a small city block and at least 50 meters high. But what dominated the chamber wasn't the impressive architecture or the advanced lighting systems that had automatically activated when he entered. It was the Mecha. The machine stood in the center of the chamber like a sleeping giant, easily 30 meters tall and covered in armor plating that seemed to shift color depending on the viewing angle. Its design was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Too advanced for human technology, but somehow familiar in a way that made his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. The Mecha's head was angular and predatory, with what looked like sensor arrays, where eyes might be on a living creature. Its arms ended in hands that could probably crush a shuttle, but they were positioned in a way that suggested rest rather than aggression. Massive weapon systems were integrated into its shoulders and back, but they were clearly powered down. As Marcus approached the towering machine, lighting panels in the floor activated, creating a path that led to what appeared to be an access lift near the Mecha's feet. The entire chamber hummed with barely contained energy, and Marcus could feel the static electricity making his hair stand up. "This is impossible," he breathed. "Humans don't have Mecha technology. Hell, most of the galaxy doesn't have Mecha technology." A new voice spoke from speakers hidden somewhere in the chamber walls. Unlike the computer's artificial tones, this voice had personality, gruff, tired, and definitely annoyed. "Oh, great. Another human. Just what I needed to make my millennium complete." Marcus spun around, looking for the source of the voice. "Who's there? Show yourself." "I'm right here, genius. All 30 meters of me. Though I suppose from your perspective, I'm more up there than right here." The Mecha's head turned slightly, and those sensor arrays focused on Marcus with an almost audible whir of servos. The machine's movements were smooth and fluid, far too lifelike for any artificial construct Marcus had ever encountered. "The Mecha is talking," Marcus said weakly. "Brilliant deduction. You humans really are as observant as I remember. Yes, I'm talking. I'm also thinking, feeling, and currently experiencing a very strong urge to step on something small and annoying. Guess what category you fall into?" Marcus took a step backward. Are you going to kill me?" The Mecha let out what sounded like a mechanical sigh. "If I wanted you dead, tiny human, you'd already be a small grease spot on the deck plating. I've had this conversation with your species before, and it always goes the same way. You stumble into places you don't belong, find things you don't understand, and then panic when those things turn out to be more complex than your primitive little brains can process." "Hey," Marcus protested, "humans aren't primitive. Says the species that took 3,000 years to figure out faster-than-light travel, and only manage that by reverse engineering Centauri technology. The Mecha's head tilted in what might have been amusement. But I suppose you're here now, which means the galaxy has gone to hell again, and someone thinks they need me. Marcus's mind was reeling. I don't understand any of this. I bought this station to start a mining operation. I didn't even know you existed. Of course you didn't. The sellers never mentioned the colossal, cranky Mecha in their listings. Bad for property values? The machine's tone was dry as dust. What's your name, little human? Marcus Chen. Well, Marcus Chen, you've just become the proud owner of Aegis Protocol Unit Designation Titan 7, though most people who knew me called me Grex. I've been stuck in this tin can for approximately 843 years, 7 months, and 16 days. Not that I'm counting or anything. Marcus stared up at the enormous machine. 800 years? But humans have only been spacefaring for about 200 years. Exactly my point. I was here long before your species figured out which end of a plasma torch to hold. Grex's voice carried a note of weary resignation. This station was a forward operating base during the last Void War. When the fighting ended, I was placed in standby mode and told to wait for new orders. I'm still waiting. The Void War? Marcus had never heard of it. When was that? Your species wasn't even a footnote in galactic politics at the time. It was before the Great Silence, before the treaty that banned sentient war machines, before your people started spreading across the galaxy like some kind of persistent rash. Marcus was beginning to understand why the previous owner had been so eager to sell. So you're a weapon. I prefer mobile defense platform, but yes, I was built by the Terran Defense Authority during humanity's first real war with an alien species. Turns out your ancestors had some very impressive engineers when they were properly motivated. But the Terran Defense Authority doesn't exist. It never existed. Grex was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made Marcus's chest tight. Kid, just because your history books don't mention something doesn't mean it never happened. The TDA was disbanded and their records classified so far above top secret that most governments don't even know they're missing something. Your people have a talent for forgetting inconvenient truths. Marcus walked closer to the access lift, his engineering curiosity overcoming his fear. Why are you telling me this? If it's all classified? Because I'm tired, Marcus Chen. Tired of waiting, tired of being alone, and tired of listening to the same recycled air circulation patterns for nearly 9 centuries. You own this station now, which makes you my commanding officer by default. And frankly, you're the first human I've talked to in so long that I'd forgotten how annoying your species can be. The access lift activated automatically as Marcus approached, clearly designed to bring visitors up to the Mecha's cockpit level. Marcus hesitated, looking up at the towering machine that claimed to be a relic of a war his species had apparently forgotten. What happens now? He asked. Now? Now you decide whether you're brave enough to learn the truth about what humanity really accomplished out here in the dark. Or you can run away, sell the station to someone else, and spend the rest of your life wondering what secrets you walked away from. Marcus looked at the lift, then up at Grex's imposing form. Everything in his rational mind told him to leave, to cut his losses and find a safer way to make a living. But the engineer in him, the part that had always been driven to understand how things worked and why they existed, wouldn't let him walk away. He stepped onto the lift. Interesting choice, Grex rumbled as the platform began to rise. Let's see if you're as stubborn as the rest of your species. Something tells me the galaxy is going to need stubborn very soon. As the lift carried him up toward the cockpit of a mecha that shouldn't exist, Marcus realized that his simple plan to start a mining operation had just become infinitely more complicated. But looking up at the advanced technology surrounding him, technology that was apparently built by humans centuries before his own birth, he found himself more excited than afraid. After all, how often did someone get the chance to discover that their species had a secret history among the stars? The lift carried Marcus up alongside Grex's massive frame, giving him a close look at the intricate details of the Mecha's construction. The armor plating wasn't just metal. It seemed to be some kind of adaptive composite that shifted and moved like living tissue. Conduits of energy pulsed beneath transparent panels, and Marcus could hear the low hum of power systems that were clearly more advanced than anything he'd studied in engineering school. "Impressive, isn't it?" Grex's voice came from speakers near Marcus's head. "Your ancestors didn't mess around when they built war machines. Every system is redundant, self-repairing, and designed to function independently for centuries if necessary." "How is that possible?" Marcus asked, running his hand along one of the support struts. "Even our best fusion reactors need maintenance every few years." "That's because modern human technology is designed by committees and built by the lowest bidder. The TDA had unlimited resources and a very simple mandate: build machines that could protect humanity from threats the rest of the galaxy couldn't imagine." The lift stopped at a platform that gave access to what was clearly the Mecha's cockpit. The entry hatch was large enough for a human, but sealed with the same advanced materials as the rest of the machine. As Marcus approached, it hissed open automatically. "Go ahead," Grex said. "The pilot's chamber is designed for your species. You won't break anything just by looking around." Marcus stepped inside and immediately felt overwhelmed. The cockpit was far larger than he'd expected, with walls covered in displays, control surfaces, and interfaces that seemed to respond to his presence. The pilot's seat was clearly designed for human proportions. Surrounded by neural interface connections and haptic feedback systems that looked like they belonged in a medical facility rather than a war machine. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed. "The level of integration, the neural interface technology, this is at least a century ahead of anything humans have today." "Try 8 centuries behind what we had back then," Grex replied dryly. "The TDA didn't build me to be state-of-the-art. They built me to be beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen." Marcus settled into the pilot's seat, and immediately the displays around him came to life. Data streams flowed across the screens in languages he couldn't read, but somehow the information felt familiar. System diagnostics, power distribution charts, weapon readiness indicators. It was like looking at a language he'd always known but never learned to speak. "The neural interface is activating," Grex explained. "Don't panic. It's just establishing a baseline connection. The chair is scanning your nervous system to ensure compatibility." "Compatibility for what?" "For piloting me, obviously. Did you think I flew myself around the galaxy for 8 centuries? Mecha require human pilots. It's what we were designed for." Marcus felt a slight tingling sensation as microscopic probes made contact with his spine through the seat. The displays around him suddenly shifted, and information began appearing in clear English. Power levels, structural integrity, weapon system status, all of it flowing directly into his consciousness without overwhelming his ability to think. This is incredible," Marcus said. "I can feel the station systems, the power flow, even the rotation of the habitat sections. It's like the entire structure is an extension of my body." "That's because it is, in a sense. The station was built as my maintenance and supply facility. When you're properly connected, you'll have control over every system from here to the docking bays." Grex paused. "Speaking of which, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" The main display shifted to show a long-range sensor view of the space around the station. 3 ships were approaching from different vectors, their profiles unmistakably military despite their civilian transponder signals. "Centauri attack cruisers," Grex said grimly. "Modified for stealth operations and running silent. They've been shadowing your approach for the last 6 hours." Marcus's blood went cold. "They followed me here?" "More likely, they've been watching the station for years, waiting for someone to activate the security systems. My awakening just sent out a ping on about 17 different frequencies that the Centauri intelligence network has been monitoring since the war ended. What do they want? What do you think they want? They want me. A fully functional Aegis protocol unit represents technology that could shift the balance of power in this sector. The Centauri have been trying to reverse engineer TDA technology for centuries. Marcus watched the approaching ships with growing alarm. How long until they reach us? 23 minutes at their current speed. But Marcus, there's something else you need to know. Those ships aren't just Centauri. The display zoomed in on the lead vessel, and Marcus could see additional details. The hull modifications, the weapon configurations, the energy signatures, it all pointed to a conclusion that made his stomach drop. They're flying hybrid technology, Grex continued. Centauri hulls with human-derived weapon systems and shielding. Someone has been sharing classified TDA research with them. That's impossible. The TDA was disbanded centuries ago. The organization was disbanded. The technology was archived. And apparently, some of those archives have been compromised. Grex's tone grew darker. Marcus, I need you to understand something. If those ships take this station, if they capture me and reverse engineer my systems, they'll have access to weapons technology that could threaten every human colony in this sector. Marcus gripped the pilot's chair arms as the reality of the situation hit him. You're asking me to fight them. I'm not asking you anything. You're my pilot now, whether you want to be or not. The neural interface has already established a permanent connection between us. You can't leave, and I can't function without you. What? Marcus tried to stand up, but found that his body wouldn't respond properly. The connection between his nervous system and the pilot's seat had deepened while they were talking. Relax, Grex said. It's not permanent in the sense that you'll be trapped forever, but for the next few hours, we're essentially one organism. Your consciousness controls my movements, your reflexes guide my responses, and your decisions determine our actions. Marcus could feel his panic rising. I'm not a soldier, I'm a mining engineer. I don't know how to pilot a 30-meter war machine. You don't have to know how, that's what I'm for. I handle the technical aspects of movement, targeting, and weapons control. You provide the human intuition, creativity, and moral judgment that I lack. Together, we're greater than the sum of our parts. The approaching ships had separated, taking positions that would allow them to surround the station. Marcus could feel through the connection that they were powering up weapon systems and jamming equipment. They're preparing to board us, Grex announced. Marcus, we have approximately 15 minutes to decide how to respond. We can try to hide, but they've already detected my activation signature. We can try to negotiate, but Centauri intelligence operatives aren't known for their reasonable nature, or we fight. Or we fight. But understand what that means. If we engage those ships, we're not just defending this station. We're potentially reigniting a conflict that's been dormant for 8 centuries. The Centauri will view any aggressive action as an act of war. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to think clearly despite the overwhelming flow of information from the station's sensors. He thought about the life he'd planned to build here, the simple mining operation that was supposed to give him independence and security. All of that was gone now, replaced by a choice between surrender and war. Grex, he said finally, if we surrender, what happens to you? I'll be dismantled, my core consciousness transferred to Centauri research facilities, and my technology reverse-engineered to build weapons that will be used against human colonies. The Mecha's voice was matter-of-fact. My memory banks contain detailed information about TDA operations, base locations, and weapon specifications. In the wrong hands, that information could be devastating. And if we fight? If we fight and win, we send a message that humanity still has teeth, that there are lines that cannot be crossed without consequences. Grex paused. But Marcus, if we fight and lose, the consequences will be the same as surrender, except you'll be dead. Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. 3 ships full of trained soldiers were approaching, and his only ally was a centuries-old war machine with a personality disorder. By any rational measure, he should surrender immediately and hope for the best. But as he sat there, connected to systems that his own species had built centuries ago, feeling the power that flowed through Grex's massive frame, Marcus realized something important. The engineers who had designed this mecha hadn't built it to surrender. They'd built it to protect humanity, no matter the odds. "All right," he said, "tell me what we need to do." The change in Grex's demeanor was immediate. The mecha's systems came fully online for the first time in centuries, and Marcus could feel the machine's excitement through their neural link. "Now that's what I wanted to hear," Grex rumbled. "First, we need to get out of this hangar. The station has defensive systems, but they're designed to protect against small craft, not military cruisers." Marcus found that he could control the mecha's movements through intuition rather than conscious thought. As he imagined standing up, Grex's massive form rose smoothly to its feet. The sensation was indescribable, like being 30 meters tall and incredibly powerful, but still unmistakably human in consciousness. "The main hangar has a launch catapult system," Grex explained as they moved toward the chamber's exit. "It was designed to accelerate me to combat velocity and zero gravity. From there, we can engage the enemy ships before they reach the station." As they walked through the corridors of the station, Marcus could see through Grex's sensors that the approaching ships had dropped all pretense of stealth. They were openly scanning the station and had begun deploying boarding pods. "They're not waiting for us to surrender," Marcus observed. "Zentauri intelligence doctrine doesn't include asking politely for what they want," Grex replied. "They're planning to take the station by force and sort out the details later." They reached the main hangar, and Marcus was amazed to see that the space was actually larger than the chamber where Grex had been stored. Launch rails extended into the darkness beyond the station's hull, and massive blast doors were already opening to reveal the star-filled void outside. "Marcus," Grex said as they positioned themselves on the launch platform, "once we leave this station, there's no going back. Win or lose, this action will have consequences that reach far beyond this little corner of space." Marcus looked through the mecha's sensors at the approaching ships, now clearly visible against the distant stars. He thought about the choices that had led him here, from deciding to buy the station to stepping into Grex's cockpit. Every decision had seemed rational at the time, but they'd added up to something he never could have imagined. "I understand," he said. "Launch when ready." The catapult system engaged with a force that would have killed any unprotected human. But cushioned within Grex's advanced inertial compensation systems, Marcus barely felt the acceleration as they shot out of the station at several hundred meters per second. For the first time in 8 centuries, an Aegis Protocol mecha was in open space, fully armed and ready for combat. And at the controls sat a mining engineer who was about to learn exactly what humanity was capable of when it was properly motivated. Space combat, Marcus quickly discovered, was nothing like the simulations he'd seen in training videos. The reality was a 3-dimensional chess game played at thousands of kilometers per hour, where a single mistake could mean death in the cold vacuum of space. "First rule of mecha combat," Grex said as they hurtled toward the nearest Zentauri ship. "Never fight fair. We're outnumbered 3-1, so we use every advantage we have." "What advantages do we have?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the panic out of his voice as the enemy ships grew larger in their targeting display. "We're faster, more maneuverable, and I haven't had a good fight in 8 centuries. I'm feeling motivated." Grex's weapon systems came online with a sound like distant thunder. "Plus, they don't know what we're capable of. The last time anyone saw an Aegis unit in action, most of these ships' crews weren't even born yet." The lead Zentauri cruiser opened fire first, sending streams of plasma bolts toward their position. Marcus instinctively jerked to the right, and Grex responded by firing maneuvering thrusters and rolling away from the incoming fire with fluid grace. "Good reflexes," Grex commented. "Now watch this." The mecha's right arm came up, and a weapon that Marcus hadn't even seen extending fired a single blue-white beam. The beam struck the Centauri ship's forward shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. The cruiser's entire front section vaporized in a flash of superheated plasma. "What the hell was that?" Marcus gasped. "Particle lance, standard anti-capital ship weapon from the old days. These modern shields aren't designed to stop that kind of focused energy delivery." Grex was already turning toward the second ship. "One down, 2 to go." But the Centauri weren't sitting still. The remaining 2 cruisers had spread out and were firing from different angles, forcing Grex to dodge constantly. Marcus found himself thinking in 3 dimensions, anticipating where the enemy fire would be and moving to avoid it before the weapons even fired. "You're getting the hang of this," Grex observed as they spun through a complex evasion pattern. "Most humans take hours to develop that kind of spatial awareness." "Most humans aren't connected to a 30-meter war machine," Marcus replied. He could feel the enemy fire as if it were aimed at his own body, and dodging felt as natural as walking. The second Centauri ship fired a spread of missiles, and Marcus watched in fascination as Grex's point defense systems activated automatically. Tiny laser turrets emerged from the mecha's shoulders and began tracking the incoming weapons, destroying them one by one with precise bursts of coherent light. "Show-offs," Grex muttered. "Missiles against a mecha? They really don't know what they're dealing with." But the third ship was hanging back, and Marcus could see why. It was different from the others, larger, more heavily armored, and bristling with weapons that looked disturbingly familiar. "Grex," Marcus said slowly, "that ship has TDA technology." "I see it." "That's not just hybrid technology. Those are actual Terran Defense Authority weapon systems. Someone didn't just steal the plans. They stole actual hardware." The third ship opened fire, and Marcus immediately understood why Grex sounded concerned. The beam that lanced out from its main gun was identical to the particle lance that had destroyed the first cruiser. Grex barely managed to dodge, the beam passing so close that Marcus could feel the heat through the mecha's armor. "That's not good," Grex said. "If they have our weapons, they might have our defensive systems too." Marcus was already thinking ahead. "Can we get close enough for physical combat?" "Physical combat? Marcus, we're in space. There's no ground to fight on." "No, but there's the ship itself. If they have our shields and weapons, maybe they don't have our armor." Marcus could feel the plan forming in his mind. "How strong are your hands?" Grex was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could sense the ancient AI running calculations. "Strong enough to crush a starship hull, but getting that close means flying through their entire defensive envelope." "Then we better be fast." What followed was the most terrifying 3 minutes of Marcus's life. Grex accelerated directly toward the third Centauri ship, weaving between particle lance beams and plasma bursts while the point defense systems worked overtime to clear a path through the enemy's missile barrage. The Centauri ship tried to back away, but Marcus had anticipated that. He guided Grex in a complex spiral approach that made it impossible for the enemy gunners to track them effectively. It was like being a very large, very dangerous insect buzzing around someone's head. They came alongside the cruiser's hull with enough velocity to shatter any normal mecha, but Grex's inertial compensation systems absorbed the impact. Marcus reached out with the mecha's arms and grabbed onto the ship's main weapon turret. "Now what?" Grex asked. "Now we find out how well these ships are built." Marcus twisted, using Grex's massive strength to wrench the weapon turret away from the ship's hull. The Centauri cruiser shuddered and began venting atmosphere from the breach, but its engines were still functional. "Hull breach detected," Grex reported, "but they're not disabled yet." Then we keep going. For the next few minutes, Marcus turned Grex into the galaxy's most destructive demolition worker. They tore off sensor arrays, ripped away armor plating, and systematically destroyed every weapon system they could reach. The Centauri ship fought back, trying to ram them or shake them loose, but 30 meters of advanced war machine was not easy to dislodge. Finally, the ship's power systems failed, and it went dark. Marcus guided Grex away from the disabled vessel, breathing heavily despite the fact that he hadn't moved a muscle. "Well," Grex said, "that was certainly creative. Most pilots would have tried to solve that problem with firepower." "Most pilots aren't mining engineers," Marcus replied. "I'm used to taking things apart." But their celebration was short-lived. The second Centauri cruiser had used the distraction to move into optimal firing position, and its weapons were already charging for another attack. "Marcus," Grex said urgently, "we need to end this quickly. My power systems are showing strain from the close combat, and that ship still has full shields." Marcus looked at the tactical display and made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of moving away from the disabled ship, he positioned Grex directly behind it. "What are you doing?" Grex asked. "Something stupid," Marcus admitted, "but hopefully effective. Can you grab that ship and use it as a weapon?" "You want me to throw a starship at another starship?" "Why not? It's not like they're expecting it." Grex's laughter rumbled through the neural link. "Marcus, I think I like your style. Let's see if this old war machine still has some surprises left." What the Centauri crew on the remaining ship saw was an Aegis Protocol Mecha grabbing their disabled companion vessel and hurling it like a massive spear. The improvised weapon massed several thousand tons and was moving at considerable velocity when it struck their shields. The shields held for approximately 2 seconds before failing catastrophically. The disabled cruiser punched through the defensive barrier and struck the second ship amidships, sending both vessels tumbling away in a shower of debris and venting atmosphere. "2 ships disabled with one throw," Grex said with satisfaction. "That has to be some kind of record." Marcus watched the damaged ships drifting apart, their emergency beacons already transmitting distress calls. "Are they going to survive?" "Their life support is intact, and rescue ships will reach them within a few hours. They'll live to regret attacking us, which is more mercy than they would have shown you." As they floated in space among the debris of the brief but decisive battle, Marcus began to process what had just happened. Less than an hour ago, he'd been a simple mining engineer with dreams of independence. Now he was the pilot of a legendary war machine that had just defeated 3 military vessels. "Grex," he said finally, "what happens now?" Now we go back to the station and prepare for the consequences. This battle will be reported to Centauri High Command within hours. They'll send investigators, and eventually, they'll send more ships. More ships that we'll have to fight? Maybe. Or maybe they'll decide that stirring up ancient conflicts isn't worth the cost. Grex paused. "But Marcus, you need to understand something important. This isn't just about us anymore. By activating me, by fighting this battle, you've reminded the galaxy that humanity still has secrets, still has weapons that can change the balance of power." They began the journey back to the station, moving slowly through the debris field. Marcus could see that some of the wreckage contained technology that was definitely human in origin, confirming that someone had been sharing classified designs with the Centauri. "So what do I do with that knowledge?" Marcus asked. "You learn, you train, you become the pilot I was designed to work with." Grex's tone grew serious. "Because something tells me that those ships weren't here by accident. Someone wanted to test our capabilities to see if the old weapons still worked. You think this was planned?" "I think we just passed the first test, and I suspect the real challenges are still coming." As they docked with the station, Marcus realized that his life had changed forever. The simple mining operation he'd planned was impossible now. He was part of something larger, something that connected him to humanity's hidden history among the stars. But looking at the advanced technology around him, feeling the power that flowed through Grex's systems, Marcus found that he wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever was coming, whatever secrets were still hidden in humanity's past, he would face them with 30 meters of ancient war machine at his back. "So," he said as they settled into the station's hangar, "where do we start?" "We start by learning everything we can about the Terran Defense Authority and why they built machines like me. We start by figuring out who's been stealing our technology and selling it to the Zentori." Grex's voice carried a note of grim determination. "And we start by preparing for the possibility that the Void War isn't as finished as everyone thought." Marcus smiled as he felt the neural connection between them stabilizing into something permanent. He'd bought an orbital station and found a partner, a teacher, and possibly a glimpse into humanity's true potential among the stars. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but looking out at the vast expanse of space around them, Marcus realized it might be exactly the life he'd been meant to live. After all, someone had to pilot the machines that defended humanity's future, and apparently that someone was him.